Welcome, everybody. My name is Kimberly Smith, and I want to welcome you to not just another AML Gray Matters broadcast, but our last for 2023. I'm very excited today we'll be talking about artificial intelligence, or AI. I know that's been on everybody's mind this year as we've seen so much happening in the world of AI, even with some recent drama at OpenAI this past week. But we won't be going into any of that at all. I have also been taking a course with MIT Sloan to Sloan Business School. It's all online to learn more about AI, and it was a fantastic course. And a lot of what I'm sharing today is the information that I learned from that online course. And I do encourage anybody who is interested in artificial intelligence to please, look into some of these courses as well for yourself. I'm also excited because we are going to have a show and tell today. We have David Scott and Ethan Tattersall from C5 Alliance in Jersey in the Channel Islands, and they will be showing us a tool that they have created just within the past 5 days. I think you just applied it to a compliance manual, but they're going to also show us how AI can be helping um, the compliance departments of businesses. But before we begin, there is a little bit of housekeeping. So this is a reminder that this webinar is not legal advice. We should last about 1 hour, and you are encouraged to post your questions, and I will do my best to answer those questions. We've got Tom in the background, as always, that will also be answering any questions as well that he can. We will be issuing certificates of attendance. They will be auto-generated for attendees of the live broadcast only if you are watching a recording after today's live broadcast. And there are no polls, so you don't have to worry about that. And I think that's it. Yeah, and the recording will be sent out, not in the next few days. The recording will actually be sent out next week. Just so you know, it's American Thanksgiving here tomorrow. So right after this broadcast, I'm going to be going home and starting the cooking for about 15 people. Today's agenda is we're going to cover, first of all, just some basics. So again, I am no AI expert. I've just learned a little bit about it myself, and kind of looking at it from a compliance perspective. And there are some challenges and there are some risks, but there's also a lot of potential positives for the compliance team. It's not as scary. I was a bit nervous about it. We all hear about the end of the world and the AI apocalypse in the news, but I think we're nowhere near that, and there's very little risk of that, is my humble opinion. And again, we also have at the end, I'll talk a little bit about, should you AI, should you not AI, and also how it's going to impact the compliance officer role. And then, of course, we will then end with that show and tell with Ethan and David. And Ethan, these two guys, I'm sorry, I looked you guys up on LinkedIn, and you're clearly very smart. Masters of Engineering, Ethan. Thank you very much for joining us. David as well, Kingston University. You guys clearly know the technical side. So if I say anything wrong, Ethan and David, please do correct me in my presentation. So, and thank you again, both of you, for being here.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Kimberly, for that intro.
Thank you. Yes. So we'll go ahead and get started. So what is AI? So it obviously, most of us know, it stands for the artificial intelligence. That is an umbrella term, and that was what was confusing me, because I was hearing things like ML, NLP. I was hearing all these acronyms, and what I've learned is that machine learning and natural language processing, those are actually subsets of artificial intelligence. And machine learning, it's actually been around for quite some time, since the 90s. Artificial intelligence has been around, I think, since the 50s or 60s. David, if you want to correct me if I'm wrong there.
No, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been around for a while. And machine learning was defined in the 90s by an Arthur Samuel as a field of study that gives the ability to the computer for self-learning without being explicitly programmed. And there are some other subsets of AI. Those include things like robotics and natural language generation. There's computer vision and predictive analytics. And AI does continue to evolve. And as it does, there's going to be some new subsets and some specialized areas. Those are going to be emerging in the next few years. And I've showed you here that there's a strong mathematical background that's needed to truly understand, excuse me, I have a cold, but a strong mathematical background is needed to truly understand what's going on in the background, because a lot of it is based on statistics and probability. So I just wanted to make everybody aware that these machines, as they do have these AI tools, they don't have the creativity that humans have. They don't have they don't, there's a lot of nuances that we have that they do not have. It just means that they have not been specifically programmed for anything. Now, do we need AI? That's the next question. So AI, it's already having a very significant impact on numerous industries, including the financial and medical sectors. AI tools can analyze and interpret vast amounts of data much faster than humans can, and they can find those patterns that we cannot. This is then making fraud detection, for an example, much easier for banks. And this massive amounts of data is useless to us unless we can analyze it. And so this is where AI is helping various industries. An example of that is Google is using AI to prevent some illegal fishing. It's using some satellite points to find out where all these vessels are, and so that's going to actually help stop this illegal fishing that's going on. And of course, banks, they're using AI money laundering tools in fraud technology, in fraud detection technologies. And I'll also be explaining later on that so much of our data that we have is what's called unstructured data. That's your recordings of your Zoom calls, your videos, your photos, documents. It's more, there's that unstructured data and structured data, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a slide later on. Now, the next question is, then how are these machines trained? Now, traditionally, programmers, they used to tell the machine what it needed to do, writing very detailed instructions. But now we give these machines a general purpose and teach it using various examples. We teach it what it got right and what it got wrong. And this is very good for prediction problems such as that monitoring, understanding stock market movements, medical diagnosis, collision risks as well. And to kind of help you understand how these machines are being trained, for those of you who use any kind of streaming services to watch movies, consider Netflix, for instance. Many times you're asked if you like a movie and you can kind of score it or rate it. What that system's doing is it's recognizing the patterns of the types of movies you like. This is a very simple explanation, versus those you don't like. And then it's going to take these little kind of label points, such as, was it the genre? Was it an action, a horror, or a rom-com? What key actors were in there? Do most of the movies with Denzel Washington you like, or Kate Winslet? You like all those. It's going to take those data points, and then it's going to recommend further movies to you based on what you liked previously. So if you kind of think about it as a very basic example of how the machine is learning, David, I'm going to ask you, would you kind of agree, or is there another example that you would give to how machines are trained?
No, I think the supervised and unsupervised summarizes pretty much where we are in the market really at the moment. So yeah,
Mhm.
I mean supervised means providing examples, but labeled as it says here. So
Mhm.
these are pictures of a daffodil. So you'll recognize everything that's similar about these pictures. So if you see another similar picture, you know it's a daffodil. Unsupervised is really the machine trying to work out patterns itself. Um,
Right.
so yeah, in summary, those two are the primary training that we see at the moment.
Right. And what I understand too, it's like it will, we can train these machines to um, look at different pictures, like a picture of a human and a picture of a cat. And even though it might
Sure.
not have the label, this is a human and this is a cat, or apply those labels, it can eventually tell the difference of a human being and a cat. That's an example of a unsupervised training
Correct.
as
Yes.
well. Okay. All right. So the types of data, as I mentioned, and as David also mentioned, we've got the structured and unstructured, and there are other types. There's the semi-structured, there's spatial, there's streaming, things like that. And again, we've got this vast amounts of data that we cannot analyze. And just to kind of explain the difference, the structured it's very organized. This is usually in your databases, your tables, your spreadsheets, as an example. And they have the predefined columns and rows. So you've got your CRM systems, your transaction banking systems. Then you have your unstructured data. That's where it's unorganized. And those are your emails, social media posts, articles, videos, audio files, things like that. Um, so that's very important to understand about your structured and your unstructured, and of course all these other types of data, because that's key to how you're going to then be using an AI tool, uh, later. However, there's some challenges of adoption. Now, this is some snippets of a recent Moody's Analytics report that came out either October or November this year, and they presented this at a conference last week in London that I was at. And one of the challenges of adoption is that 2/3 of I think there were over 500 entities or compliance professionals that they interviewed or surveyed. And 67%, so it's 2/3 of the respondents, said they would not be able to, or they would have challenges of adopting any AI tool because their data is too low of a quality. Now, I've seen a lot of databases in my time, and I actually agree with that. There is a lot there. You've got duplications, you have typos, you've got errors, you've got missing data. So if anybody is looking to adopt any kind of AI tools or really any other technology, in my mind, sometimes you've got to look at your existing data and say what kind of state is it in? Is it in? I mean, if you don't have a lot of, if your data is like it's too fragmented, it's all over the place, because that's actually quite common, then you're going to have some challenges of cleaning that up. So, David, any talking points that your
Yeah, I mean,
experiences you've
I
had?
think, yeah, I mean, myself and Ethan, the department that we belong to is the data and AI department. Um, I guess up until this year, we were predominantly working in data engineering, so structuring people's unstructured, messy, unorganized data. And then the last year, we've really almost flipped to doing AI. But one thing that we do find is that you know organizations tend to be on a data maturity ladder. So if they're very immature from a data perspective, then they're very disorganized and their data's everywhere, and they spend a lot of time preparing data for reporting and analysis, as opposed to actually getting value at the time spent getting value out of that data. And the other end of the maturity ladder is very mature companies that really understand their data, have got it siloed nicely and understand it well, and they've got nice analytics tools over the top. We generally add AI, or AI is much more accessible if you're at that more mature level of that spectrum. Um, Having said that, though, I mean, and what we'll show you today in our show and tell is AI over the top of unstructured data. So, if you do only have unstructured data, so files and emails, etc., then AI is now clever enough to be able to find relevance in that information. But
Fantastic,
by all means, yeah, it's the more mature you are from a data perspective, the more value you're going to get from AI.
fantastic, right? Okay, so some of the potential risks of using any AI tools is the interpretability problem, or some people call it the explainability problem. And that's because when the systems are giving you a result, they're also not explaining how they came up with the answer. And that's very critical. Understanding how it came up with the answer is especially critical, especially in the medical fields, and of course in compliance if we ever use AI tools for any type of risk analysis. So that's one risk that we need to consider. We simply cannot blindly follow an output right now. And the tool you guys, David and Ethan, showed me last week, I liked it because you kind of addressed that with that one tool you showed me. I don't know if you're able to show that later on as well, but we'll kind of make sure we kind of point that out. So we need to know that we can trust the methods that it's used in the outputs, but again, be willing to question. There is also some data privacy risk. There's a great website that I've been kind of exploring. It's called, there's an AI for that. Um, and you can basically kind of type in what you want and uh, like for instance, you want something that can help with a large document scanning, and it will give you some different options to go explore. However, it would mean giving them your data right now. So that's again something else we need to think about. You want to make sure you're not transferring any data outside of your organization, especially client data, and making sure that, and again, I'll talk with you guys, David and Ethan, about that when we get into the show and tell, but bear that in mind. And also compliance officers, you might want to be very careful about making sure nobody else in your organization is using some of these tools that you're not aware of to whether it's to summarize a contract or a large document. Like, you know, for instance, I come from a law firm background. You don't want to, you want to make sure some of these lawyers aren't inadvertently thinking that they're being clever and being more efficient by using some of these tools, and because they could very well be transferring you know, confidential data outside your organization. So training your staff to be very aware of that is important. There is also bias in some of these tools. I have heard that once the bias is spotted, it can be corrected, but then the trust is often lost in the tool. But that some examples of that is the facial recognition software. You know, minority faces are sometimes deemed less accurate, I guess, in interpretation. There was also a 2019 healthcare algorithm that favored white patients over minorities. And in 2015, it was found that an online career system was displaying high paying positions to men more than women. So those are examples of some bias. And again, we have to be very aware of that. And as we adopt these AI tools into especially financial institutions, making sure that we're not inadvertently excluding people or a subset of people. However, there is also lots of potential positives. Obviously, the main one is that efficiency and the cost reduction. Anything that helps the bottom line is always welcome by senior management. Of course, it can also help compliance teams with the vast amounts of data that's being collected, and it will give us some insights into that data. A lot of people say that with so much data, so much just falls on the floor. So we have to be very careful that it can help us. Is what it can do is identify some information that we might otherwise meet. It can also help us with the automation of routine tasks. Um, One example I was trying to think of was, I mean, things like the sanctions review screening. You know, whenever you get all these hits and you have to review them and make sure that it's not your client, you know, whenever I talk about name screening, maybe there's going to be some tools that can help us with that in the future. Also, that, like I said, the data analysis insights, they can just whether it's looking at your entire client database and giving you some better insights into where your risks lie, we've all also used chatbots, I'm sure. So a lot of people say, oh, they enhance the customer experience. I might disagree with that because I find most chatbots useless, but hopefully they'll get better in time, but they can help personalize some customer interactions. They can obviously respond much faster. I did see a tool last week that was looking into various inventory systems and then telling people what was in stock and what some alternatives were, as well as the prices. So that could be very helpful for some industries. And of course, there's a lot more accuracy and efficiency with certain routine tasks that humans might otherwise make errors. There's obviously, because I already mentioned, the fraud detection for banks. And it can also help with some predictive analytics. It's going to be, spotting trends and behaviors. So it might even be able to help us later on find new money laundering trends or financial crime trends as well. And again, at the end of the day, it's all about that cost reduction. One thing we do want to be very careful about, though, is making sure we're not excluding certain segments of people or of our customers or clients if we're relying too much on technology for the customer side. And I think, kind of talking specifically our elderly, as they're not able to adapt as quickly to new technologies. So we do still need to be very mindful to make ourselves available to our customers and not just put everything, put a barrier for our customers. Another great thing is that language barriers. It is helping remove some language barriers as well. So that's another way these AI tools are helping. And then we get into to AI or not to AI in your organization. Now, your colleague, David and Ethan, Steve, he's the one who told me this quote: AI is a solution looking for a problem, which I think is great. It's this great new tool that everybody wants to adopt because we see these benefits. I think a lot of companies are rushing to implement AI tools, and it's kind of my feeling or my opinion that let's kind of not rush into it. Let's really assess the situation and what and kind of identify, well, what's the problem we're trying to solve. That's how I like to look at any kind of new technology. Would you agree with that, David, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great sentence. I think it's right. A lot of the engagements that we have with our clients at the moment are really proof of concepts.
Hmm.
And in actual fact, in some cases, some clients have come to us and said, right, just can you switch that AI on for us, please? As if it's a big button somewhere that's just going to make their business run more efficiently. And we've sort of talked them down and said, look, let's just do a proof of concept. Let's pick an area of your business where you think it might help, and let's just see how it does help.
Right,
We are, even though we are essentially a vendor, we are being very cautious about how we recommend to implement AI in companies. Um, but we are seeing some really great uses, like the one that we'll show you today.
right, right. Yeah, it's interesting too. I've noticed this trend that especially in these tech companies, they're saying, oh, it's AI enabled, AI infused, or they put
Mm.
dot AI at their end of their website now. And like I was staying in a hotel, I won't name the chain, and they had kind of like a little placard inside the hotel room that said, help us train our new AI tool. And I, obviously kind of downloaded the little app, and really all it was an order form. It's like if I wanted an extra blanket or if I wanted some more water sent up. And I was like, this isn't really AI. AI to me would be if it understood, was learning, like, whenever I checked into a hotel room, because I'm a member of this particular chain, if I checked into the hotel room and was immediately, uh, you know, um, decreasing or increasing the temperature, and that it would learn that whenever I check into a hotel room that I liked the temperature at a certain level in my room. I thought that to me that would be more AI, not an order form for some more bottles of water. So it is interesting to see this trend of people kind of rushing to say we've got AI now. Uh, So yeah, so some of the things to consider is if you are looking at AI tools, in my opinion, and David, I'll ask you if you agree or if you have some other thoughts to this, is, again, ask yourself, are you uploading company templates to automate forms? Is the technology using your data to train its AI ML tools, so outside of your organization? So you need to be very careful about that. Even translation tools, are they being used on private, confidential documents of your clients? And so I didn't even think about that whenever Google Translate would come out. Are transcript tools recording and storing private client meetings or internal meetings outside of your organization and being used for training purposes as well? Then you also need to think about when you are doing any kind of tech adoption review, make sure your data privacy officers, your CIOs, your CTOs, that's your chief information officers and chief technology officers, are working together to assess all of the risks. You also want to know, again, what internal or client information is the new tech going to be using? Where is that data being stored? How secure is it? How long will it retain that data if it's short term? Obviously, your ROI, that's return on investment analysis. How is it improving the bottom line? When you're also thinking about offboarding that technology, so because you've got to think about that technology from both an onboarding perspective, a data privacy perspective, as well as a retirement perspective. What happens, this is especially true with all your SaaS products, that's your software as a support, everything's on the cloud. What happens to your data when you say we're not going to pay for it anymore? Does it just sit there? Is there a process for completely offboarding, getting that data out so it's not sitting on some random server somewhere that you no longer have any control over or have no information about? So that's very important for us here at Silo, because it contains client data. So we have to make sure that if we've got somebody who shuts down or doesn't use the system anymore, that it's completely wiped once they've completed the offboarding processes. So you want to make sure you're not just copying the databases when you do your lift and shifts of data. You want to make sure it is completely wiped from those cloud servers, and also just again, what's happening with it whenever you do the offboard. David, any additional points that you would put there?
No, I think you've highlighted all the risks. I mean, we'll talk about that again in a bit, but yeah, I mean, ChatGPT, for example, which has taken over the world over the last 8 months. That's a
Yeah,
public service, and they openly state in their T's and C's when you first land on their site that your conversation is going to be used for training future models. So you are any sensitive data you copy and paste into a ChatGPT session is absolutely being recorded and used. Um, we've found that certain companies have actually blocked ChatGPT, the public service, from networks because the temptation to use that cognitive ability of GPT is so strong to get your work finished quicker. But it's breaking all the data protection rules by using it for corporate uses.
yeah,
So yeah, it's
absolutely, yeah. So all those terms and conditions that we never read, that's
yeah,
that's
exactly. Yeah.
must be read now. Exactly, exactly. All right, and then as far as like the future of compliance officers, so I've kind of just been, kind of mulling over what do all these new technologies mean for us as compliance officers, and I'm thinking specifically AML, anti-money laundering compliance. Um, and the answer is I don't have an answer. Will our role change? I personally think, having seen what I've seen and know what I now know, I think these AI tools are going to be a huge help to us. I think they're going to help reduce our workload. Once they become a bit more mature, I think there's still some maturity that's needed for some of them. I think what you guys are going to show us is going to be an example of like where we can start. But as far as like being able to, a client being onboarded and it saying, yes, this is a high, medium, or low risk individual, I think we're still a little ways away from that. I could be wrong because everything's changing so fast right now. Um, but we do need to think that I think it's going to help. I don't think it's going to ever replace the compliance person, the human compliance person. But I do think it can help reduce compliance costs in many areas and just help with our overwhelm because compliance officers all over the world are just very overwhelmed with workload. When these tools, when we can start applying these tools, I do think that means that it's going to free us up to do those deeper analysis that we need to do. And I think so. I think that's fantastic. Whether or not compliance professionals of the future need to have a data science background, I'm not so sure. I think that will be a help. However, there's so much I mean, to be honest with you, compliance takes on so much. I mean, I come from a finance background and paralegal background and corporate secretarial, corporate admin background. I found that all that background really helped me in my AML role. But of course, a data science role could also help. So it might be that we need multiple degrees or multiple certificates to kind of help us encompass all of the various issues that the compliance officer is facing. So again, I think this is kind of a watch this space, but I do think that AI tools are going to be very, very helpful. As long as we never lose our humanity is going to be my final word on the future for compliance officers, especially in the banking sectors as well. All right. I'm going to go ahead now, and Ethan, you're going to be the star of the show. And I'm going to make you, so just bear with this audience if you don't mind, as we make Ethan the presenter so he can share his screen. Are you ready, Ethan?
Yeah, we're ready. Thank
Shall I
And talk
fill the
on.
awkward pause with an intro?
you.
Yeah, oh yes, please intro, David.
Uh, no worries, let me do that. So I guess, I mean, there's almost a perfect segue from how you finished off, really, Kimberly, talking about how, the public service ChatGPT has sort of captured everyone's imagination on what's possible because um, its cognitive abilities are fantastic. It's trained on the entire internet plus millions of well-respected publications. The internet up to 2021, because after that there's concerns that the content of the internet is actually AI generated anyway, so can't be relied upon. Would increase this thing called hallucination. But ChatGPT is fantastic, and everyone can see its potential. But the one fear that we have is, or should have, is that if you use it for corporate use, you are taking your internal corporate data, potentially client data, personal data, and you're pasting it to a public service. So you're sending that information across the public web, which is one risk. And then number two, you're giving it to an organization who is taking their responsibility for that information and have openly said that they're going to use it for training purposes.
Hmm.
Um, so so what we'll show you is something slightly different. So Microsoft played a bit of a master stroke with OpenAI quite a few years ago, and took the decision to invest in them on the basis that they would partner with them. And as OpenAI started to build their machine models, their large language models like GPT-4, that Microsoft would take those models and bring them in-house into their cloud infrastructure, Azure. So what that means is that organizations can then spin up their own instance of GBT safely inside their Azure tenant, which means that they can then share corporate data. It's locked down, hidden behind their Active Directory, so you don't get access to it unless you log into your corporate network, which I think probably Ethan's just going to demonstrate here.
Okay.
But this means you're then safe. You're then safe to use the abilities of GBT against your corporate data, and then that changes the game entirely. and then it becomes a very, very useful assistant in your organization. So I will stop talking at this point because it's easier for Ethan to talk and drive at the same time. So over to you, Ethan.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so as David was saying, this is our Azure OpenAI powered assistant or set of assistants. And what we're going to look at first is what Kimberly mentioned. Over the last couple of days, we've just added a kind of compliance element to the demo by giving it a few of our compliance documents. But first, before we get to that part, I'll just kind of demonstrate one of the initial bonuses you get by having your own in-house version of the GPT model in your own Azure tenant is because I've logged in to access this, I can ask the assistant, who am I? And it knows exactly who I am. So essentially, as I was saying, this has got the context of who I am in my organization kind of baked in through the fact that I've logged in with my Microsoft Entra ID, which is, just the same thing you'd log into Outlook, the same way you'd log into Outlook, Teams, any of the Microsoft products. And it just means that the assistant's context aware, it can give me answers that are kind of more specific to who I am and my job role and my team, etc.
Okay.
So now kind of looking into the kind of compliance aspect of this, what we've done is we've uploaded a few kind of sample financial crime documents that would be used when onboarding and various things like that, and given them to this assistant. This
Uh-oh, we seem to have lost him again. I can see here you've got some good questions, though, as far as the examples, like can you accept a customer with Russian connection? And what kind of CDD do you need for a private company? Those are great questions for what I would say are the kind of the basics when somebody's trying to figure out, I'm trying to onboard this customer. So those are some very good examples.
Yeah. So what we've uploaded here is some PDF manuals. So yeah, around compliance. And Ethan, I can see you're moving. Can you hear us again now? So it could be that I can talk through this and
Yeah.
Ethan controls it. Let's see if that works. So yeah, so you see he's clicked one of those questions there.
And it's just generating from the manual. Is that correct? So you've uploaded the manual. Yeah. Okay, this is great.
Correct. So what
right.
it's not doing, I mean, what this is it's not just search. So what it's not doing is just going and searching the document for that phrase and then pulling back the content. It is searching the document. It's reading everything in that document that is related to what you have asked, and then it is cognitively pulling all of that together and then giving you a narrative. So what you're reading here is pure GPT interpreting those documents. So obviously there is a risk there, of course, that the GPT model may hallucinate or may come up with something which isn't correct. But what we've done is behind the scenes, we prompt engineer GPT so that we clip its wings, because it has all the ability that the public GPT model has, but we tell it that it doesn't have that ability. We tell it that all it is a compliance assistant, and it can only answer questions based on the source material that it's been given. So that prevents it from coming to its own conclusions. It prevents it from hallucinating.
Right.
But also at the same time, sorry, carry on, Kimberly.
I was just gonna say, and you actually, yeah, we can hear you, Ethan. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
We can. Yeah. So I see that you uploaded several. It's not just like one compliance manual. You've uploaded. Oh, this is our risk appetite.
So we uploaded
policy.
a few. Yeah, a few. I think it's just financial crime policy and financial crime risk appetite in this example. And what we've done is uploading those and giving them to the assistant, then it can answer the question based on those documents. And what we've kind of built into the UI and into the user experience is this citation process where you can click on the citation and then you get the document in line and you can see exactly where the answers come from. So it's come from here. Board has taken the decision not to place reliance on third parties, and you can, and that just helps with users kind of actually trusting the system and not thinking that maybe the assistant's hallucinated, maybe it's kind of making this up, because obviously it is a GPT model and it does have access to all of the data, like most of the internet up to sort of 2022 in this model. So yeah, that really helps with that kind of trust and explainability kind of right in the application. And that kind of leads into, we also...
Oh no, we've lost him again.
So I think probably he's about to show you the thought process here. That's right. So,
Yeah.
so the light bulb there. So as well as showing you citations of the reference documents, you can also actually see the model's thought process. So, we asked a question, and what it did was it interpreted that question and came up with some search terms, which is what you can see at the top there. It then used those search terms to search all the documents to find relevant material. The prompt engineering, so you can see a system message there. What that's doing is providing the prompt. Hello, Ethan, are you back?
I am. Yeah.
Okay,
Am
so
I back? Can you hear
carry
me?
on.
Yep.
Yes, you carry
Yes.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thought process we have here gives, firstly, shows what we so essentially all the documents are stored in a cognitive search index, which is a service in Microsoft.
Okay. I think we've
That's
lost you
a
again.
that's a service in Microsoft which
Yeah.
enables, what it does is it just ingests all that information in PDFs and documents, all the unstructured data that you're talking about. It can consume all that unstructured data and break it down into a searchable format. So, for example, your document or the document that we uploaded may have had 100 pages. So we would have broken that out to 100 different files and ingested that into cognitive search. And then that first process just finds the most relevant information to use in your unstructured data.
Okay.
And then the system managed message underneath, which is the prompt engineering. This is where we, as I say, clip GPT's wings a little bit and give it some specifics in how to behave. So, for example, answer only with the facts listed in the sources below. So this prevents it from using the knowledge that it's obtained from the internet, from being trained on the internet. And also that next statement there says, look, don't make stuff up. If you do not find a good enough answer, then don't answer. And you can do all sorts here. You can give it personality here. You can say, be a jovial compliance officer, or be a sarcastic compliance officer.
I was going to say, there's no such thing as a jovial compliance officer.
I'm sure that's not true. But yeah, so Ethan, are you back? No, he's not.
Yep,
Okay,
I think so.
Oh, you are. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I think probably we were next going to show, say, the ability of GPT over the top of this. So, for example, asking a question in Spanish, for example. So that's the other.
First,
oh,
first we were just what's nice about having this kind of chat interface is you've got your you've asked your question, but then you can ask kind of follow-up questions in the context of in the context of the conversation. So it mentions an obliged person here. I can then ask, what is an obliged person? And it just kind of adds that kind of conversational feel, and so you're not just getting an answer, you're also able to clarify that answer, And yeah, there we go. It's given me
So that's
the
fantastic.
definition of an obliged person. So yeah, so if I don't fully understand the first answer, if there's terms that I don't know, I can just ask ahead.
Great. And again, you did this compliance assistant in less than 5 business days, because I think it was Wednesday
Yeah.
that somebody said, "Oh, I'm going to have them do it with the compliance manual," because you had shown me a demo with a HR manual, like, do I have time off, things like that. And I wanted to ask you as well. So when we spoke last week and you showed me your kind of what you had come up with for the HR manual, you said that and correct me if I'm wrong, that you were doing it in like 3 stages. First is like a data search tool, like, do we have a vacation policy, or do we offer PTO,
Yeah.
things like that. And then it was an
So
advisory role, and then a virtual assistant role. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
yeah, so that's kind of the process we've of development we've gone through in R&D, where we started off with purely, can it answer questions on documents we give it? So we started with the context of HR and asked it kind of basic questions like, can I wear shorts to work? And it would give you an answer from the documentation. So then we kind of moved on to, yeah, that kind of advisory role where you're not asking something maybe directly or as obviously as, can I wear shorts?
Oh, we lost you again, Ethan. I think the advisory role was, if I can recall correctly from last week, and David, you might have to jump in here and tell me if I'm wrong. It was more of an insurance question, like, do we, uh, can I get physio on my shoulder under my health insurance plan, something like that. Is that correct, David?
Yeah, that's right. So, um, yeah, so, and that was probably the example that we showed you. So the HR assistant. In fact, I don't know if Ethan you can hear me, but perhaps just flip over to the HR assistant. Um, this has access to a number of different types of documents. So as well as, say, employee procedures and the employee handbook, it also has things about your health insurance, your personal health insurance policy, um, plus your employee contract, your own personal employee contract. So you can ask it questions which don't just require a flat answer, but they actually need some cognitive ability from the model to understand and then provide an answer. So, for example, you could say, how much time would I get off the paternity leave? And during that
Hmm.
time, how much would I be paid? And from your personal contract and from the employee handbook, it would be able to work out based on your salary and the formula that's in the employee handbook how much you would actually get paid. So it's not just giving you flat responses. It's giving you some proper thought out answers.
Personalized.
Yeah,
Yeah,
personal. Exactly.
yeah,
More
yeah.
advisory, as you say.
Yeah, and then on the virtual assistant role, like if you were talking about I need some time off, what Ethan had shown me was he could say, okay, I now need to take some time off, schedule my time off for, the 22nd and 23rd of November. And it would
Yeah.
automatically go through the process and book it with
It,
HR.
it,
And
Correct. So we can
yeah.
show that here. So that's you were talking in your presentation about structured and unstructured data. So
Hmm.
again, this question that you can see on the screen now that was asking about Ethan's own employment contract, which again was another unstructured PDF document. So he can only see, as he's logged in as him through Active Directory, he can only see his contract. He can't
Okay.
see mine, for example. Um,
Right.
but that's unstructured data again. But what you're referring to is the ability to be able to ask questions about structured databases. So this HR assistant is connected into our internal database containing information about us as a company, the organization structure. Um, so, for example, here we go. So Ethan can ask about his team. So it knows it's Ethan. It knows he's in the data and AI team. It can then go and write a query against a structured database, a SQL database, um, which is all GBT. It's writing that query itself, and then get back from the database the answer. So,
Okay.
here you can see it actually it's fully aware, bang up to date information. Daniel Adams is the last person to join the team, and here in its thought process, you're seeing at the top there, there's a SQL statement. So that is a query that's been written by GBT with very little prompting from us. It's all its own cognitive ability. So all we've really done there is to plumb this in, connect this to our database, and given it the freedom to write this query. So in order for it to write that query, what we have had to do is describe the tables and the fields inside those tables to GBT. So just put that sort of,
Yeah, I like that. And
context
be brief
around
and
stuff.
bubbly in your answers. I like that.
Yes.
But it was interesting because again, when we talked last week, so it says brief and bubbly, but then you adjusted it. For instance, like if the word, like for instance, if they were taking time off for bereavement leave or funerals or death in the family or sickness, to tone it down because you don't
Yeah.
want to enjoy that funeral, have a margarita
Well,
on me kind of thing. Use yeah.
that's interesting though, is that wasn't us. We didn't prompt engineer it to change the tone. That's GBT. So it is programmed. Well,
Oh, really?
it's prompt to be bubbly, and it'll always be bubbly until if you mention something like that, it just knows to tone it down,
Oh, so
which is
you
impressive.
didn't. Okay, I thought that was interesting because I was sitting there thinking that's very clever of to tone down the responses. So fantastic. All right, and again, you guys did this very, very quickly, the compliance one, and of course with the audio issues. I mean, that just goes to show, technology is not 100% all the time, is it? Yeah. All right. So yeah. So Ethan, looks like you've got some holidays to take. Fantastic. Yeah, there's that. Make sure to plan some relaxing time off. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it
That's
even throws in
fantastic.
emojis. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
All right, fantastic. Okay, Ethan, if I'm going to go ahead and take over. Or let me ask Tom, are there any questions related to BDO's presentation before we switch screens again?
Yeah, there's
Anybody
quite a
see?
few actually.
Okay. All right.
There's
You want to read
there's
them
some
off
questions,
for
quite a
us?
few. Awesome. Let me start from the top. Can BDO Chat GPT tap into publicly available, independently verifiable sources to automatically build corporate structure charts and identify the UBO?
I'd say the answer to that would be yes. If all we would require was that connectivity into a data source. That can be any data source. If it's a public data source, the chances are there's a publicly available API that would allow us to connect to it. Yeah, so yes is the answer.
Something
Awesome.
worth exploring. Yep, absolutely. Okay. Any else?
Does the information go into the overall Chat GPT database, or is it confined to the organization only?
The latter, yeah. So Microsoft's promise to us is that if we use the models inside Azure OpenAI framework, and it is limited to our tenant, that information never doesn't even leave our tenant. So it's not only does it not go to the public GPT databases, it doesn't even go to Microsoft's own. It's just staying within your organization.
Okay. And
Okay.
is that only for Azure servers because it's a Microsoft product? I mean, if they had an AWS server, they wouldn't be
Yeah,
able
so
to use it.
I have no doubt that AWS and Google will at some point catch up,
Hmm.
but Microsoft are a long way ahead of the game with their relationship with OpenAI. So as far as I'm aware at the moment, there isn't a competitive product in Amazon.
Okay.
But I know that OpenAI themselves are working on an enterprise GPT, which they give the assurance that if you use that, then your data is safe and not shared um, to the wider organization. But the benefit of limiting it or working with the Azure Open AI is that most businesses that we deal with are Microsoft users. They already have Office
Hmm.
365. So it integrates perfectly with their Active Directory, and when they log in, it's fully aware of who they are. Whereas if you're hosting something in, say, Google or AWS, that is an external login
Okay.
outside of your otherwise
What
normally Office 365 environment.
What about those who have not moved to the cloud and only have, all their client information and their internal information on their servers or on their own intranets on their servers? Is something like this, can that be used? Could they apply something like this? Or
Yeah, so that just requires a bit of data engineering first. So
okay,
that is what we do for a lot of businesses. We'll just bring that data up into the cloud first and sit it somewhere that this model here can then access very easily.
okay,
So it is
all right,
possible.
possible. And I was just showing what Ethan was just showing. He asked the question in, is that Spanish?
Spanish, yeah.
Portuguese? Spanish, yeah. He asked the question
Yeah,
in
Spanish.
Spanish, and it returned the result, the information in Spanish. So that's
That's
just good
right.
for the larger firms like BDO here. You've got offices throughout the world. So
Correct,
even,
yeah.
yeah, it
And
looks like
that's even
even
though
though
the information sources are in English. It's
yeah,
still returning.
okay, all right, fantastic. All right, Tom, any other questions?
Yep. So in terms of quality and reliability of this search, how soon do you think these tools will be fully reliable? Will they ever be fully reliable, or will users have to apply their own judgment?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is why we tended to build proof of concepts for our clients, because we certainly, as a vendor and developer of these solutions, would not want to be on the hook for providing a solution which is going to give the right answer every time. The sort of the ambiguity, I guess, of these machine models and the fact that you ask it the same question twice, you'll get two different answers, is it's an important thing to consider. The prompt engineering that we do to limit the model to just focus on the data sources is the key to the success of that. But that's a very open-ended thing. So, what we tend to do when we put one of these in is we will provide just numbers of days for prompt engineering, and then we would fully expect the client to come back to us and say, well, actually, what we've discovered is that it's answering these questions incorrectly, and then we'd come back and do a bit more prompt engineering to try and steer the model into the answering the question the right way. So straight out the box, off the shelf, when will these models be able to answer everything correctly every time? I don't think that'll ever be the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another quick question here, are there any size limits in the amount of data you can upload to use BDO ChatGPT?
Yes, there are. These are increasing all the time, but in this example, the way Microsoft is charging for the service, the GPT service, is based on something called tokens. Roughly, a token is a word. And I think in one request to the model at the moment, the limit is about 10,000 tokens. So the amount of information you could send it up in one go is 10,000 words. So I mentioned earlier on that what we do is we take those PDF sources and then we'll break those down into individual pages, and then we put that cognitive search over the top. So the purpose of that is we don't want to give it the whole handbook every time we ask it a question, because that'll blow that token limit. So we just give it the relevant pages. So GBT is doing two things there. Firstly, it says, right, what are the relevant pages? And again, that's all GBT. It's doing the search. Then it pulls up those relevant pages and then asks the question again on that reduced data source. So that's how we get around those limits. It's that sort of two-pass process.
Okay. So I think we're running out of time here. It's top of the hour now. So we'll have to wrap up, unfortunately. And so if somebody wanted to create this for their own organization, they can just reach out to you guys, and you guys can kind of give them a quote and a kind of an assessment of what it can and can't do in more detail. Because
Absolutely,
I'm
yeah.
seeing a lot of questions like, is it cloud-based? Can it do this? Can it do that? So, but I think really what they need to do is they just need to reach out to you guys And what
Yeah,
I can
we
do
are.
is, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we're very, very happy to have conversations with people about how possible, how practical it is to spin something like this up for their organisation. What we do have, because we've been R&Ding in this space now for several months, is we have an accelerator. So a lot of what you see is off our shelf, and then it's just a case of customizing it to.
Yeah, sorry, you got really uh, very quiet on me, David. I don't know if your
Have I?
mic's, yeah, you're
Is
fine
that
now. Okay,
better?
yeah, yeah, that's
Okay.
better.
Sorry, I don't know how much of that you didn't hear then. So yeah, I mean, what you're seeing, a lot of this is off our shelf now. So we've developed this
Okay.
framework, and then all we do is we tend to go into companies and then just look at their subject matter and
Hmm.
point this at their subject matter. So it's fairly low cost accelerator to get AI into your organization.
Right.
But
And of course, again, just to clarify to everybody, what you just saw is C5's BDO's internal kind of assistant or compliance assistant. It's nothing that you guys just sell and say, here you go. This was your own internal documents,
correct,
correct?
yeah, that the
All right.
Ava HR assistant is live and in use in our company.
In your company.
Yeah,
Okay. And you would
so
create something like that for each organization who calls you and says, we need help.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Are you guys seeing my screen again?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Somebody did ask about the course that I took with MIT. I will send that again next week. I will send out the recording, and it will be the recording. If you want slides, you can reach out to Tom as well. In the meantime, here are some resources that I thought were just very good for reading. There's that Moody's report. There's lots of online articles. The one I like, obviously, is anything from MIT Review. There's the towardsdatascience.com website that you can go to, and lots of there's again, you just search podcast AI, and you're going to find something that's great to listen to. And of course, Leading Digital is a great book as well. So do check out those resources. Again, as we finish up here, I want to thank you, Ethan and David. Thank you so much. I know I put you guys were put under some pressure to create something that could be shown. I think you did a fantastic job of doing that in such a short time. So thank you very much.
Anti-money laundering compliance and customer and vendor onboarding involves multiple processes that must be done correctly and by the right people in the most efficient way. The tasks include gathering customer and vendor ID and verification documents, screening against sanctions and politically exposed persons lists, analyzing any reputational risk, periodic monitoring to assess any changes and updating due diligence, and staff training on money laundering, terrorist financing, bribery and corruption awareness and risks, as well as keeping them up to date on your policies and procedures and new regulatory requirements. In addition to the onboarding processes being strictly followed and documented, management must have access to critical compliance metrics and information to steer the company through regulatory waters and mitigate customer and other risks. With Silo Compliance System, these obligations become much more efficient. With Silo, your staff can enter the customer's information and upload due diligence documents and any other documents that you require. Key information entered about your customer automatically calculates a risk score, a calculation using a risk-based approach determined by you at initial implementation of Silo. In addition, if you have screening enabled, when the customer's name is first entered into Silo, the name is checked against sanctions, politically exposed persons lists, and adverse media. You'll see results of screening immediately and can review any potential hits right away. And with screening enabled, your customers and vendors are continuously monitored for any sanctions advisories, helping you get ahead of any potential reputational risks. No company is too small to benefit from using Silo. Even if your onboarding processes seem under control today, if one key staff member becomes unavailable or there is any increase in your customer portfolio, compliance with strict onboarding and review processes can quickly overwhelm a small company and put you at risk. Plus, implementing Silo can reduce the need to hire additional staff to manage compliance obligations and reduce your risk of non-compliance regulatory penalties and continued inspections. No one goes through an inspection or audit with great ease, but several users have reported that their inspections went more smoothly and with Silo they had improved outcomes. Reach out to us today to schedule a demo of Silo.